Morning, everybody. Welcome to the first of three green teas. This is Towering Pine Day today. Before the end of this session, you'll know lots more things than you know right now. You'll know that a very famous person was connected with the creation of Towering Pine. You'll know it was done by a research institute in Hunan province. You'll know what the physical terroir characteristics are where this grows. And then any other miscellaneous interesting pieces of information, because again, today you're blessed. I'm wearing linen. So interesting, true pieces of information that come rolling out of my mouth. So let's go ahead and get started on today's session. And let's start a little bit with history, because pre-session today, one of you asked me about maybe white tea was before green tea. I mean, how the heck do we know what tea was first? And why these last few weeks you've heard me talk about confusion historically, apparently, about when yellow tea started. All the teas somehow seem, except really oolong tea. Oolong tea has a really clear historical sense of provenance. We know from poetry, we know from local chronicles approximately when oolong tea, and I mean within probably a 50 or 60-year period of when it appeared to start. So let me tell you what my bias is so that you're completely clear. I have looked at all the research very, very carefully that I can find. And nothing to me yet has come forth to convince me that we had yellow tea in the Tang Dynasty. White tea is more problematic because, as was suggested to me, well, heck, somebody somewhere probably took a fresh leaf and just threw it in the water. Wouldn't that be white tea? And it's hard to argue against that except for one thing. White tea is lightly oxidized. There's not much oxidation, but there is oxidation. So the further question arose, well, wait a minute. Back in the ages when the Taoists were controlling scientific thought and people were experimenting, they didn't know oxidation. And whether they did or not, it's true that it probably wasn't put up there in the same scientific way that we would understand oxidation today. In fact, it's undoubtedly true. What all of us need to remember is, in what environment did green tea arise? It arose along with, but post-dated TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. So actually, lots of things were being done to lots of plants. And the medicinal practitioners already had some sense. Well, if you heat this, it's going to stay a certain color. If you heat this, it won't be poisonous. If you don't heat this, it's going to do something else. So there was lots of experimentation. So tea came along that line. And remember, as far as we can tell, tea was a traditional Chinese medicine to start out with. Later, it became a catalyst for Chinese medicines, and yet later it appears that that's when a crossover to beverage occurred. So it's not that I don't want to believe all these other claims, and they're fun to think about. Oh, yellow tea in the Tang Dynasty. God, somebody was really smart who did that. Really smart. I'd love to believe these things. Or the emperor writes something about Anji Baicha. And you see the two words Baicha and you think, hey, here's my proof. An emperor wrote in 1100 that there was white tea from Anji. Only problem with that is when you look a little deeper, that can't be true because Anji Baicha was the name that was assigned to the green tea modality that was done where Anji Baicha was picked. It was called Baicha because it looked white. That was a mutation in the leaf, apparently. So all of these things, it's hard to see in the light of all this history written about green tea cakes, these contests where they were doing green tea, and everybody mentions green tea, and then all of a sudden, oh, and now we have one yellow tea, one white tea. Does not make sense. I'm not convinced. Let me put it that way. I haven't seen research which convinces me. All right. So green tea started the party going. And we know that traditionally, what? Green tea is pretty simple. And it's like everybody should be able to grow green tea, except they're not. And today's green tea in particular would be very hard for anybody to guess how to do. But let's go through the basic steps, not of today's green tea, but of green tea in general. You pick, you wither, short amount of time, you fry or you steam to make sure you denature the oxidation enzyme. Then you either shape or roll while you're frying, you shape or roll afterwards, or you don't even shape or roll, period. And at the end, you bake it so that it doesn't mold. You get that moisture content to 5% or less. Okay, really easy sounding rules. Very easy sounding rules. Even I might be able to accomplish that. Maybe not, though. So, does towering pine follow this same exact pattern? Well, the answer would be no. Let's go through the towering pine process and see where it might be different. Do we pick leaves? Oh, that's the same. Yeah, we pick leaves. When do we pick? We pick pre-Qingming. Qingming is usually April 4th or 5th. So before April 4th or 5th. And by the way, this is in Hunan province. Hunan is in central China, a little bit south central. And where it was in the province itself was in central Hunan, or is in central Hunan, where this tea was invented. So you pick, okay, that's the same. You spread out. Oh, wait a minute. I just used a different word. Spread out. Is this a trick of some sort? Before you said wither. I did say wither. Now we are in for a verbal trick. So let me explain what this is. At first, when I first saw this thing, I didn't quite get what I was looking at. But as I became more immersed in tea industry, I suddenly realized, oh, there's reasons they do all these things. So what does it mean they spread it out? They spread it out in small batches in order to reduce the moisture content. But instead of trying to get down to 50 to 60%, they're really just trying to get down to maybe about 80%. So it's not much moisture content that they're really trying to get out. So after they spread out, then they wither. Now I've used the word wither about 10,000 times in previous sessions. And wither usually means, oh, you blow air through a machine and the leaves, jump up and down, or you spread it out and leave it in the sun. There's many, many ways to wither. Turns out there's one more way we haven't talked about. And actually, I'm going to leave you with a question in a minute. You don't have to answer now. You can think about this particular question. Wither. In this case, they have a special box that they wither in, and this box is heated. It's heated to about 280 degrees. So right now, we're at a fact. I'm giving you a fact. Then, after that step, and I haven't asked you the question yet, after the wither step, they roll. Okay, we've heard roll, because you want it to look a certain way sometimes. Okay, and after they roll, they cool. We're still good because all the teas, after you pass them through heat, you like to cool so you can do other things. All right. You dry. I'm sorry. No, you don't. You shape again. You dry. You screen. And you bake one more time. Wow. Sounds like a lot of things went on there. Let's go back to the most confusing part of what I just said, the withering part. Do they fry it? They actually do fry, but not at the withering part. It's wither, shape, and then fry. Wither, roll, and then fry. I'm sorry, they shape further down the road. All right, so why is it that they roll after withering? We've not seen that before. We've always seen the roll after frying. I mean, aren't you afraid that if you roll out after withering, you'll start to oxidize things? Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this mystery for a minute, and you all think about it and cogitate about it, and then let me know in about 5 minutes why you think that might be okay to do. And maybe actually you might think it's not okay to do. Maybe you think today's not going to be a good tea. That's a valid potential answer. It's not the right answer, by the way, but you can still have that as a potential answer. So wither, roll, fry, cool, shape, screen, bake if it's not down to 5%. And usually it isn't. Usually, and I'm talking about the moisture though. That's the process of what this tea is. Now, it's in a county called Aha County. And why did we name it Towering Pine? Was I just looking out the window and seeing pine trees? God, those are tall pine trees up there. Is that how I came to this name? Answer would also be no. I came to this name because the original name in Chinese has the word pine in it. And actually, the leaves, when they're growing, kind of remind you a little bit of pine needles. They're not obviously exactly like pine needles. You have to use imagination. So if your imagination isn't kicked into gear this morning, don't tell me that they don't look like pine needles. I already know this. When the imagination isn't working, no, it doesn't exactly look like a pine needle. But that's the Chinese name, or pine is in the Chinese name for it. And so I adopted that, towering pine. All right, what does the physical terroir of what this place look like? Is it in the mountains? Yes, check. Is it way high in the mountain? No. It's about 2,000 to 4,000 feet above sea level. So it's not at 10,000, but it's still in the mountains. Okay. How about the weather? Good weather there? 200, on average, 274 frost-free days. Oh, that sounds pretty good. What about the non-frost-free days? Do we have snow? We have an intense period of cold and we have snow every year, but they're short snows. Okay. So it has 4 real distinct seasons. It has about 50 to 60 inches of rain per year. Okay, I'm getting a picture. This still sounds tea-ish to me. What's the color of the soil? Color of the soil can be brown, yellow, occasionally red. So if you have more iron in a particular place, you're going to usually get a little red. And let's go down and grab a piece of the soil and see what it looks like. Well, looks to me like about 70% of it is shale. And as I'm looking a little closer, about 20% of it is sandstone. Anything else in there? Yeah, there's limestone, about 6%. 2% granite. Hey, you didn't get up to 100%. Yes, I know that. Because the remainder is stream and river alluvial soil. In other words, the soil that gets on the bottom of the rivers and streams, very rich in nutrients, is also part of the soil mix. So this is a pretty good soil to grow tea. One more thing. I said streams. Yes, they have a huge number of short streams. What is short? Short in length. They're not rivers. But they come above ground. They go for X amount, maybe a mile, and then disappear. So they have a lot of those. In other words, there's lots of water within this forest. All of you who've heard me talk about the importance of pH are going to be surprised by the following statistic. When I looked at the soil, I felt that acidity alkalinity equation was a little different. How about 5.5 to 7.1 pH? Wow, that's different. I mean, it crosses over where we usually are, usually 4.5 to 6.5. Ideal usually being around 4.5 to 5.5, but this is higher in. So it's different varietal, a little bit different from the composition of the soil. So you have the physical terroir all laid out for you. You don't have it all laid out, but you have the basics of the physical terroir. How did this thing spring into being? Because I looked through the history annals, nothing was mentioned of this tea, although this place was, this area, this mountain was named often as being a good place to produce tea, but not this particular description of tea. Why? Because this is a newly minted tea. And by that, what I mean, it was hybridized, invented, so to speak, in 1959. It's always weird to say a year and invented because the scientists just didn't wake up one morning and get out of bed, hey, I'm going to invent a tea. They work years and then it comes to fruition. So it's better for me to say it came to fruition in 1959. It's there. They grew a crop. They harvested it. And it won prizes instantly in Hunan. It became named within 3 years one of Hunan's top 3 teas. Hey, let's talk a little bit more history because there's something else interesting in the history about the creator of this tea. So you remember, and maybe you don't, let me go through this. Mao, who ruled China and from 1949 onwards, prior to 1949, was revolutionary, right? Fighting to get more territory, more power, this and that and the other, leading the Communist Party, anti-Japanese effort, anti-KMT effort, all of those things, right? Along the way, he got married a few times. The first wife's younger brother was the one who was head of this institute in Hunan. And he was responsible for bringing this to fruition. So that's just a little bit of interesting history. So, if you happen to be serving this to your friends, hey, this was made by Mao's first wife's younger brother. So that gives you a little bit of cultural terroir about this tea. So we see the processing modality is quite different. It's your turn to tell me what sort of answers you have for why you're not afraid to roll the tea after withering. I gave you all the pieces of the puzzle. And if you think about one piece in particular, the light bulb will come on and you'll say, and by the way, I know that there's at least one new person on today. You don't have to be thinking about this because the rest of the group are the 1%ers, and they know nearly everything there is to know about tea. Okay, nobody has any guesses? Okay, let's revisit what I said about withering. I said it withered, that they withered the tea at about 250. Oh, we have a winner.
Kathy says, is this because of the moisture content at that point?
You know, you're thinking in the right direction, Kathy. You absolutely are thinking in the right direction. It's not quite the right answer, though, because think about when you wither ordinarily green tea, you're reducing moisture content from near 100 down to about 50 or 60, right? And here, and let's think about what you usually do as a farmer when you wither. You know, you bring the tea in, it's dumped out in piles, you know, you roll a bamboo mat or some mat, you spread it out so that there's some air withering, or you put it on these fancy machines that you've seen before. They're long, long trays, and there's air blowing up, and the leaves are jumping up and down, trying to get that moisture out of the leaf. But that's not what I just described for withering. What did I just describe? Okay. What I described was application of heat. What happens when you apply heat? Oh, and wait a minute. Let's think about what number I used. I used 280 degrees. What does that mean? If I roll the leaves afterwards and squeeze them and bruise them, are we going to have oxidation? Impossible. You denatured the oxidation inside with 280 degrees. Let's do the oxidation lesson again. Oxidation occurs fastest. It's in a bell curve. At 32 degrees Fahrenheit, no oxidation, essentially. At 150 degrees, you start to denature the inside. At 88, oxidizes real fast. Where did I say we were? 280 degrees. So that's why this is so different, because they apply heat and they do it in these small boxes. This is very labor intensive. They do it in these small boxes, and that essentially denatures the oxidation. And then when you roll it, who the heck cares if you smash the leaves and liquid comes out? No oxidation can occur. Yes.
So you're distinguishing then this box of the 280 degrees. You're distinguishing at a 280 degree temperature feels like it's baking, but you're talking about it actually sitting in an environment. As if it's not actually baking. I'm wondering what impact.
So it's open.
It's open.
It's not closed. So it's not baking insofar as we would normally think of baking in the West, where you close something in. And by the way, let's be clear about one thing. 280 degrees, whether it's indoors, outdoors, contained, uncontained, once the leaf is experiencing that for X amount of time, boink, denatures the oxidation enzyme. And so afterwards, when you roll and you're rolling, okay, you know what? That's a great question because that suggests I didn't describe the roll well enough. And here's what it is. You roll in specific motions and you roll not too hard, not too light. What are you attempting to do when you roll? And remember, I said you shape down the road. Here you roll. You're trying to get the juice of the innards on top of the leaf. And then you fry. And frying at that point, what does it do? It's just like, you're thinking of, you're going to put a sauce on something. You're going to then all of a sudden get a hot pan and fry it. And you're frying actually to kind of have it adhere to whatever it is. And this is the same sense with that, because again, words matter. Wither, roll. I didn't say wither, shape. I might have the first time. That was a mistake. Wither, roll, cool, dry, shape. So that's what's happening with this. And this is what makes this process so interesting. And by the way, I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you, but this is specifically helpful to the flavor of this. Yes.
Jonathan asks, when denaturing steam, since only able to get to 212 degrees as opposed to pan frying, do you just need to do it longer?
Yes, this is a great question. So Jonathan is making sure, since I'm wearing linen today, that the science of this is done correctly. And this is a great question. He notes that steam, when you're creating it, usually 212 or so is about the height of the temperature. And when they pan fry in China, typically they're trying to get that pot up to about 300 degrees. Well, does that mean you steam it longer in order to make sure that the enzyme is denatured? And the answer is yes. You've got to get full denaturing. It isn't, you can't flash denature. Oh, I'm gonna put it in this 300-degree barrel, point, throw it in. Oh, okay, denatured, point, go to the next step. No, it usually takes something on the order of about 12 minutes or so to denature. Now, why did I say or so? This doesn't sound very scientific. I've never heard a scientific paper written, oh, such a number or so. The reason is because every Chinese farmer is an artisan. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. All the craft farmers are artisans. And as such, what are they relying on? Do they reach in their back pocket and get those laser pointed thermometers? Oh yeah, this one's 300 degrees. No, they're smelling. And at a certain point, it's done. Let's go to the next batch. Simple as that. Okay, I've almost over talked. All right. This is fascinating tea, and this process truly is fascinating. I love sharing this with you. This humble tea that's become very famous in China. All right, now it's time to take our 10-minute break. And
Or 10 seconds.
Oh, did I say 10-minute? Yes, for the first timer who is on here, please disregard that previous statement. It's never a 10-minute break, 10-second break. And I am going to go from the seat to behind the counter. And I'm going to find Bijou, the tea master. Well, look what I found. I found a beautiful, greenly clad tea master.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing
I'm
good.
so happy you were learning. So I'm very well.
Okay.
Okay, I want to cut this. Okay, today 早上好 we do 绿茶 That's called green tea 绿茶 from Hunan. So cover. Okay, so we have the new people.
We have one.
One. Okay. So we do demonstrate first. So and then we can try it.
Right. So we demonstrate first. So Bijou will demonstrate how to brew this. And then you'll get packet number 1, labeled Towering Pine out of your package. And that's the one we're going to use today. So you watch first and then she'll brew with you a second time. And this is her setup, by the way, a tea tray. And all you really have to have, here's what you have to have. 2 glasses and a strainer are what you have to have. Nothing else is absolutely required. All right, so the first step is to make sure that all of the glasses are completely clean, no residue. Even if you think they're clean, you put hot water in anywhere from 170 to 212. Put hot water to make sure everything is truly without interference to your appreciation of this tea. You know, soap stains, as little as that. I mean, they're clean and they're hygienic, but they disturb the full appreciation of the tea. So we're always very careful with that. And that's part of tea rhythm. The tea rhythm gets you present. That's why we do tea rhythm, because there are details. When you do this tea, paying attention to the details, all of a sudden, when you taste it and you go through in a measured way to taste it, it's like, oh my gosh, I taste all these flavors and interesting things. So again, reminding you that with this tea rhythm, everybody's got a different tea rhythm, but it's good to have an established tea rhythm so that you get the same results every time you do the tea, the same relative results.
Rob notes that the or so is scientific in the sense that it acknowledges the limitations to our knowledge and variances in natural processes that cannot be eliminated.
Now, I love this comment, and thank you for that, Rob. This is very well said, because the or so actually opens the door for further scientific inquiry. It says, essentially, if I'm paraphrasing this correctly, that, hey, to date, here's what we know, and here's what we know for sure, and there's more room for improvement and precision.
Rob also adds that almost every scientific paper I've ever seen has an or so in it in the form of a plus or minus error bar.
Oh, I like that. Yes, a plus or minus error bar is scientific notation for or so. And that's very well said. Now, note the tea master, she after she heated the glass, she put the tea leaves in. She's going to pour on the side of the glass. If you miss, don't worry about it. Not the end of the world. You notice that these have quite a bit of uniformity to them. Whoops. You never like to hear whoops behind the camera. Oh my goodness. That is.
4 minutes.
Yes, I. There we go. All right, 4 minutes. All right, and so the first thing you would notice is the uniformity. Let's go back to the steps, because I said step number 7 was to screen. What does that mean? Does that mean you arrange a television show and, you know, screen these potential stars? And no, wrong screen. It's the sieve screen. So you sieve out anything that's inconsistent because they're looking for uniformity. With these craft teas, remembering that they do everything by hand, it's labor intensive, and they want, from a consumer standpoint, everything to look approximately the same. And they take pride in that. So they go through a screening step. And that's why these leaves look relatively the same. The other thing to note, and it's really interesting because as I was reviewing my research on this tea last night, I came across a statement which I've seen many, many times, and I had just forgotten, that in fact, this tea, in terms of the screening process, in terms of that care, and kind of the relative process to put together the tea is similar to Gyokuro, which is a very famous Japanese tea that is in small production, very fancy, very good taste. And it turns out that the Japanese love this tea for a number of reasons, but I'm not going to reveal those at this time until you taste it. And then we'll talk about how that's come about. All right, so we set the timer for 4 minutes, and we are the cup, the recipient cup has hot water in it. We'll pour that out of that cup when we separate the tea leaves from the tea water. Yes.
So when we're picturing the land, are these rows, neat little rows of tea plants that have been planted, or was the original plant, I don't recall whether this was hybridized or was the original plant something that was found naturally growing in a forest as with some of the other teas we've discussed?
They hybridized it with a couple plants that arose in that forest. And it's really interesting because your question, I thought it was going to go a different direction. So I'm thinking also about a direction it could have gone. Are these tea bushes set up in such a way that you would walk along and see miles of tea bushes? The answer is no. It's on mountain sides, it's in valleys. They surround the mountains a little bit, but they're not contiguous. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that the forest, in many cases, grows right up to where the tea fields are. Now, is the forest, unlike Idaho Mountain, where the tea is actually in the forest, you wouldn't technically have that same feeling with this tea. The tea is at the forest, kind of, is the feel, because you don't have trees growing in the middle of the where the tea leaves are. And this is an ancient tree. So we're not in an area that we're getting, it's not even an old tree. We're not getting 600-700 year old bushes. All right, timer has gone off. Great question, Barbara. All right, tea master, and again, everything in the rhythm. Took her time, separated the tea leaves from the tea water, saving the tea leaves because you get a nice second steeping, 2 minutes. Take a look at the color. Ooh, pretty green, very distinctive. So again, for first timers, we're demonstrating right now, you're not doing yet. We enter the quality arena. And what does that mean? That means you're going to take a 175-degree sip. You're going to coat your tongue. You're going to try and ascertain for you, because genomically we're all different, where's the astringency? Everybody will experience astringency. Almost everybody in different places will experience it. Top of the tongue, top of the mouth, back of the tongue, sides of the tongue. You have all these experiences. So you make a note of it. And by the way, you should be taking notes because we're going to do another green tea next week and another green tea the following week. You can compare, see the similarities and identify the obvious differences. So ascertaining astringency after you swallow it, what's the aftertaste? Sometimes you won't get it right away. Sometimes it'll take a couple times. Then lastly, what are the energetics? Some people call it cha-chi. Don't call it that in here because chi, for these purposes, is not a good enough term to describe what I'm really trying to think about, which is the energy. You know, do you feel grounded? Do you feel warm? Do you feel cool? All of these things. So that I will enter the quality arena. Wow. Okay. If my notebook were open, I would be taking notes. By the way, when we're in China testing teas, we're always writing notes. Why do we do this? Because we've got 400 plus teas in here. So in order to keep track as we're testing, and we usually test 2,000 or 3,000 teas every time we're there. In order to keep track, we have to take really, really good notes. So I get where the astringency is in my mouth. I get an aftertaste. I'm going to do one more, verify that, and also think about aroma and taste this time. And by the way, sometimes it takes a bit for energetics to become clear. So don't worry if in the beginning, oh my God, he must not have given me tea because I don't have any energetics. No, you will get them. It takes a bit sometimes. All right, it's your turn to brew. Tea Master will brew with you. So you get out bag number 1 from the packet labeled Towering Fine. You take out the leaves, try as best as possible not to touch it with your hands because your hands frequently have aromas or leftover smells, leftover lotion or whatnot. Things get on your hands. And if you can handle it in a tray of some sort or a bowl even, and then transfer it that way when it's time to transfer, that's less influence on the tea leaves. So we're trying to, as much as possible, get as much of that original flavor.
Jennifer observes the dry and wet tea leaves are so small for a green tea. They feel petite and tiny to me as a green tea. Definitely the other end of the spectrum from Long's creation.
Oh, great comment. So Jennifer contrasts. She says, you remember, you got that Wong's creation that's a couple inches long. That thing is huge. These, on the other hand, are so delicate and so small. So actually, when you get small leaves like this, you know 2 things. First off, that the varietal is very different. Second off, especially with the uniformity of these, you know that some lot of work had to go in to get them uniform like this. Very good catch, Jennifer. Set your timers, 4 minutes. And actually what she's doing is heating the cups, dissipating the steam.
Jeremy says, so many memories from 2018's magical visit to this tea farm. And when I sip, I especially recall the singing of the colorfully clad pickers singing across the rows of tea bushes. That joy comes into the cup in front of me. Is pleasure and energetic?
You know, I love Jeremy's poetic musings. And part of what she was talking about was when she was out in the tea fields, because she went with us to Hunan, not to this particular farm, but to another one. And the people who were picking were indigenous peoples and they were singing, and it was obviously a joyous song. And so Jeremy's commentary is pleasure and enjoyment one of the energetics? And you know what? Absolutely. It is one of the energetics. All right. So you saw the tea master get the water into this cup. You saw the process of cooling down the water. Our water pumps come out at 175 and 200 degrees. And so that's one of the reasons that we don't need to spend as much time aerating and cooling the water. But this is beautiful. And every tea has a different aesthetic, doesn't it? So this tea, you note the aesthetic that all the leaves are holding a meeting at the bottom. There's only laggards at the top. And we have some teas where we see, oh, everything's at the top, and then there's one or two that go down to the bottom. So each tea has different characteristics. And by the way, why do I point all these things out? I do this subconsciously because when, again, we're taking notes, we look at all of this stuff. Did I say that time? I did. Okay. We look at all of these things. These are the things that help us not only remember the tea, but they also prove to us if we haven't gotten the right tea. So occasionally we get teas that aren't the right tea, and we look at all the characteristics. It isn't just a question of tasting, it's a question of how did it look when you brewed it.
And when you say you get teas that are not the right tea, are you talking about something accidentally being shipped to you that isn't what you originally selected?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Stuff that was sent, and it's always, it's almost always 99.9% of the time, it's an accident that something has somehow been labeled incorrectly, or somehow they made a switch that was not right. So we look for every clue. And now you're really looking inside the tea business. And you're looking inside the tea business here because we're hugely detailed. Most tea businesses wouldn't think necessarily to look at such a detailed, at so deeply at the details. But again, we have 400 plus teas here, and we got to keep track of all of these. And more importantly, when we're out there in the fields, and it's always fun in the fields. And just as Jeremy said, you know, there's distractions, pickers singing, beautiful indigenous costumes, people talking to you while you're trying to appreciate the tea, all these things. So we're taking really, really, really good notes so that when we come back, when we receive the tea, it better match what our notes say. Otherwise, we know something has happened. And for clarity's sake here, we have never been intentionally fooled by a farmer. That's never occurred. And I think because they understand our process and they see that we're so detailed, they're also very careful. And they're clear because they've been doing this business 30, 40, 50 years. And right away, they look at things like this detail. They see other things right away. And so they see things with eyes that most Westerners wouldn't see. All right, your timer has gone off, 4 minutes. You're going to separate in rhythm the tea from the tea leaves from the tea water. Okay, now the beautiful time of the tea ceremony, not tea ceremony, tea session. And this is the time for you to enter the quality arena and tell me what you think. And again, for first timers, there's lots of distance between the rails, the description rails, let me tell you what is outside of the rails, and then you'll see how much distance there is. So don't ever tell me there's garlic taste. Just don't do that. Secondly, it's best if you don't use a descriptor of sour, because sour is a 4-letter word in the tea industry, and it's not a good one. So those two things are kind of the guardrails. Everything else is pretty much in play. Remembering also, if you get down to floral, is it floral? And then sometimes you'll hear other people say, oh no, it's fruity. Here's what's really happening. You're detecting the same thing, you're using different words. It's really, really hard for all of us because we don't go to elementary school and teacher gets on the blackboard and says, okay, here, I'm going to give you this taste. This taste is boink. And then next taste, boink. And then we all know that we're going to describe something a certain way. That's not how we learn tastes and flavors. And so the result is the chemical composition is exactly the same, but we're detecting it differently. So we have two things going on. Genomically, we have a difference in how we detect things. And even harder is just the language around things. Yes.
Jonathan asked, how does this tea compare to your favorite green tea? Unless this is your favorite.
Great question. So Jonathan is asking how this compares to my favorite green tea, unless this is my favorite green tea. So now, all of you who are listening, the 1%ers, the new person, I would excuse you for not knowing this. This is a trick question, isn't it? Because knowing that here in the shop, we love all our teas equally. It's just like all families with children, they love them all equally. So I can't quite answer it the way it's asked. I can say, though, that this has earned its way on the board. This is a tea, and here's the thing, and this is why I love this question, because some people come in and they think, okay, I'm surprised. A, there's way more teas than I'm used to seeing in one place. And B, wow, some of these seem expensive. And then their eyes light on towering pine. Oh, very inexpensive. Well, that can't be good because it's so much less. And the answer is no. That's not true. All of our teas are in here because they earned their way on the board. Price is a whole different consideration. That depends how good we were in terms of negotiating with a particular farmer. It depends on the year we get it, because is there a bumper crop? Our price is lower. It depends on tariffs. This one came in pre-tariff, so obviously it's going to have a lower price. There's lots of things that go into pricing, but I'll tell you the one thing in Sophie's that never goes into pricing is this a good tea or only a medium tea? No, they're all great teas. Yes.
Jonathan asked, I ask as I find this to have a unique flavor compared to others here. I know it's pan fried, but it tastes closer to a steamed green tea that I've had before.
Oh, that's a great observation. Thank you for that, Jonathan. He clarified the commentary because he said this has a different feel than many of our other green teas. So his question was, in the process of doing this tea, is it possible that they snuck in a steaming instead of a frying? And in this particular case, the answer is no, but it's a good question because actually, Jonathan's detecting a very different profile of this green tea And let's go back to what I said in the description. What do I see? We spread the leaves and then we withered. And I had to give you a temperature. And then we roll. What are we doing when we roll? That's the magic in here because we're getting those tea juices all in this. Look at how much color this has. That's tea juices exposed and act and in causing our senses to have a reaction. Yes.
Jennifer says, I don't think I've tried this tea before, even though I think of myself as a green tea connoisseur. I love it. It's easy to drink. It's not too light. It's not too strong. It's refreshing and comforting. It does taste grassy, which I enjoy, and vegetal.
Ah, great comment. Let's start at the end because the very last word Jennifer used, thank you, by the way, for that comment. The very last word Jennifer used was vegetal. Yes, this is vegetal forward. She said it's also some grassiness. She used the words refreshing. And yes, Jennifer is a huge green tea aficionado. And so for her to say this means that must be pretty darn good. And it is great commentary, and particularly as you rounded it out there with that vegetal, easy to drink, refreshing. That's an energetic, refreshing, yes.
Rob says the smell of the warm leaves made me think of the rounded umami chocolate.
Ah, so Rob takes this from the smell of the warm leaves, rounded umami chocolate. And why do I like this? First off, he modified chocolate. If he had just said chocolate, you know what? I don't quite get that chocolate, but the umami-ness of this and chocolate, yes, because it's almost in the back of your mind. Oh, could there be a little chocolate in this? And actually, let's go back to Jennifer's comment and link these two together because you know how some chocolate is so smooth and it just makes you, it gives you the feeling of smoothness. That's what this tea is, smoothness. Yes.
So that was from the scent of the warm leaves. And then he says the steeped leaves have a vegetal floral scent, and the tea water smelled like sweet corn silk and ocean.
So we've got vegetal corn scent in the wet leaves and the tea.
Floral in the wet, and then
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then the corn and ocean in the tea water.
Thank you. Vegetal, floral, and the wet leaves. Too many flavors at one time. And corn and ocean in the tea water. What's the lesson from this? Thank you for that comment, Rob, because you've made a lesson out of this. The lesson is, and all of you are really, because you are the 1%ers, of course, you all are aware of this. You get tea rhythm, you get tea appreciation by looking at each step in the chain and linking the whole experience. Now you're a real tea drinker. When you get that whole experience, you can say, I like this because in the smell of the leaves, there's floral and vegetal. I'm not used to that. That really impresses me. At the end, there's umami with a hint of corn in it. Sweet, sweet. So you've understood a whole pattern of flavors. And this is the magic here at Sophie's because you all get that. You all work at that. You're present. You're present all the way through. Yes.
Jeremy says very little astringency, delicate sweet scent, thirst-quenching liquor, warming to the core.
Oh, I love this. Thank you, Jeremy. Warming to the core. That's the energetic. And you know, this is a surprise, isn't it? Because green tea, we normally think, oh, let's wait until it's hot out there and have our green tea, because it's usually cooling. But in this case, I share Jeremy's warming to the core. And I was wondering whether anybody else was going to have that. This to me is a warm up. She further noted smooth. She further noted
Thirst quenching.
thirst
sugar,
quenching.
Little astringency. low.
Both of those are important. Thirst quenching and little astringency. Let's focus on that little astringency for a minute, because if anybody thought there was no astringency, that's not correct. No matter what, there's some astringency. Polyphenols create astringent feeling in your mouth, and so, but this isn't overwhelming. It's long lasting, but it's not overwhelming. And in combination with Jennifer, who said easy to drink, thirst quenching. Yes, go ahead.
Dylan and Teresa observed the aroma of the warm leaves remind me of chara, but there's something else distinctly different, vegetal sweetness.
Oh, I love this. You know, it's funny. All of you are landing on interesting places at the end of your comments. Vegetal sweetness. Clearly, both things are going on. Dylan and Teresa led with, this reminds them a little bit of char. Char is one of the specialties we have from Canton Province. Green tea, very unique, and it shares a little bit with this from their perspective. So, particularly with that sweetness.
Rob says the taste has a delayed astringency on the first sip. Then the flavor is more straw, grain like than grass for him. And it reminds him a bit of barley tea.
Okay, now we're going to where the Japanese would talk about this tea, and occasionally the Chinese as well. So that barley flavor, you hear that from some descriptions from Japanese people. And one of the reasons they like this particular tea, Japanese people like this green tea a lot. The other thing that he said, remind me.
It is that there's this delayed astringency.
There you go.
And then he gets more straw green than grass, which ties in with the barley.
Straw grains than grass. Japanese would say that. And going back to the delayed astringency, I want to comment on that because he said it in the correct way. I said it in a different way. We were saying the same thing. It's an accumulating astringency. It lasts a long time, and every sip adds a little bit more. Great catch. Thanks, Rob.
Dylan and Teresa add, drinking this transports me to the coast, enjoying a refreshing sea breeze.
Dylan and Teresa are on the coast enjoying a refreshing sea breeze. Why is this such a good comment? This links with all the references to umami. So they're sitting out there on a lawn chair right at the ocean and getting the smell of the ocean and feeling a refreshing feeling. This is this tea. Great catch.
Jen East observes, given how dark the color was, I was genuinely surprised by the delicate scent and flavor. Obviously, lots of greens throughout, but the light end of greens more like clover. The taste does have more of the wheatgrass depth. Unlike Jennifer, I'm definitely not a green tea connoisseur, but this one is quite drinkable.
This is great. So Jen talks about this and makes a contrast. Greens aren't exactly the first go-to, but this one is drinkable. And part of it has to do with her description of the flavor. So let's go through that.
Yep, in her description of the flavor, we'll back it up.
Wheatgrass.
Yeah, she said two things. This is on, there's the greens, taste of greens, presumably vegetables.
Yeah.
Throughout, but more like the light end of greens, like the clover.
So love this description because it's still vegetal without question. But Jen notes it's on the lighter vegetable end. This isn't your kale and this isn't your asparagus, but this is like a delicate Brussels sprout. Oh no,
Really?
that went off the rails.
She did
Never
not say
mind.
that.
She didn't say that, and she doesn't concur with that either. Just teasing, just teasing. Go ahead.
Dylan and Teresa add such a delicate astringency that builds so slowly it's almost easy to miss.
Yeah, this is a great comment because when I took at the opening, when I entered the tea arena, quality arena, I thought, oh my gosh, this almost doesn't have an astringency. But by the time that we were tasting together, oh, there's more and more and more. It's building, it's layering, and it goes, how some teas right away there is an astringency on your mouth, and there's no question. This built.
Jeremy comments, the commentary is also spot on. So much convergence of thought. Even the tight, dry leaves in the bag had that sweet vegetal scent. Great session.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeremy. Tight leaves in the bag had a vegetal scent, and she notes how everybody, it's like a circle, and everybody kind of surrounds the tea with comments that are related. And again, this is perfect because this is why you are the 1%ers, because you get this. You get how to build a chain, you get how to link it, and then you make very relevant comments regarding, and these are comments, by the way, that for the most part, the Chinese would absolutely understand. So, as usual, I'm in the company of luminaries. And this is why I'm so lucky every week, because I get to stand up here and listen to all these great comments. I salute you all for your attention, and particularly for this tea, because I was wondering if all of you would stop and really take the care that was needed with this tea, and you absolutely did. Fabulous job. I wonder, where do you go from towering pine? Maybe we should encounter water, maybe a dragon well. That's what's on tap for next week. Your responsibility this week is to stay healthy. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye now.
Take care.